Have you ever really thought about your personal space? That invisible bubble we all walk around in? Well, guess what? The law sees it too. In fact, it builds this kind of legal force field around you, all to protect your body, your mind, and your freedom. Today, we're going to break down exactly how that force field works. Let's get into it. I mean, we've all been there, right? That person in line who stands just a little too close for comfort, or a friend who jokingly lunges at you and makes you flinch. And these aren't just awkward little moments. They're actually potential breaches of your personal force field. And the law has a name for these breaches: intentional torts. Okay, so before we can start building up this force field, we really got to know what the materials are. So first things first, what in the world is a tort? Okay, so a tort is basically a civil wrong, which is totally different from a crime. It's when somebody's action, or even their inaction, causes you harm, and the law gives you the power to hold them accountable, usually for money damages. You can think of it as the law's way of hitting a reset button, trying to restore balance and make the injured person whole again. So you want to know a secret? Almost every single intentional tort is made from the same 3 core ingredients. It's kind of like a recipe, and once you learn it, I'm telling you, you'll start spotting these torts everywhere. So here they are, the 3 core ingredients: act, intent, and causation. The act has to be voluntary, a conscious movement. Intent is all about the mindset behind that movement, and we're going to dive deep into that one in a second. And causation, well, that just means the act is what actually caused the harm. It's a simple chain. The act, driven by intent, leads to the harm. Now, this intent ingredient, man, this is where things get really interesting. See, it's not just about wanting to cause harm. There's specific intent, which is your direct goal, right? It's like aiming for the bullseye on a dartboard. But then there's general intent. That's where you know a result is substantially certain to happen. Think about setting up a line of dominoes. You might not want that very last one to fall, but when you push the first one, you know it's gonna. That's substantial certainty. And this is just perfectly illustrated by this classic case involving a 5-year-old kid who pulled a chair out from under his aunt as she was about to sit down. Now, did he specifically want to hurt her? Well, maybe not, but the court asked a much smarter question. Did he know with substantial certainty that when he moved the chair, she was going to try to sit down and fall? The answer was yes, and that was all they needed to establish intent. Okay, we have our recipe. Let's cook up our very first tort. Battery. It's a word we all think we know, but the legal definition is way more specific and, honestly, a lot broader than you might think. So there's the definition. And the key words you really got to focus on are harmful or offensive. See, battery isn't just about a fist fight. Any intentional touching can be a battery if it's one of those 2 things. Let's walk through the elements real quick. First, you need the intent to make the contact. Second, the touching itself. It can be direct, like a push, or it could even be indirect, like throwing something that hits a person. And finally, the contact has to be either harmful, meaning it causes actual pain, or offensive. And that offensive part is where the tort of battery gets really, really broad. And that's the big takeaway here. Battery isn't just about preventing physical injury, it's about protecting your personal dignity. The law recognizes that your right to control your own body is absolutely fundamental. So any contact that offends a reasonable person's sense of dignity is enough. Think about someone spitting on you or an unwanted kiss. It might not cause physical pain, but it's a huge violation of your personal space. That's battery. So what happens if you swing at someone and miss, but you accidentally hit somebody else? Does the intent just, poof, disappear into thin air? Nope. The law has this clever little trick for this exact situation. It's called transferred intent. Okay, so just picture this. Our defendant decides they're going to throw a punch at person A. The intent is there. The voluntary act is happening. But whoops, person A ducks out of the way, and the punch lands right on person B. Just an innocent bystander. So, did the defendant intend to hit person B? Of course not. But legally, it just doesn't matter. The law says that the intent transfers from the intended target over to the actual victim. So our defendant is still on the hook for battery against person B. It's pretty simple when you think about it. The bad intent follows the bad act, wherever it ends up. All right, next up is the tort that everyone confuses with battery, but it's completely, totally different. Let's talk about assault. Now look really closely at that definition. The key word, the whole ballgame, is apprehension.
Assault has absolutely nothing to do with being touched. It is all about the threat of being touched. It's that heart-stopping moment you flinch because you see a punch coming, whether it actually lands or not.
So the recipe for assault has three key parts. First, you need the intent to cause that apprehension. Second, the apprehension itself. And this is critical. It just means you're aware of the threat. It doesn't mean you have to be afraid of it. And third, imminence. The threat has to be for right now, not I'm going to get you next Tuesday. This quote really gets to the heart of what assault is all about. It's not designed to protect your body, it's about protecting your mental peace. It's your right to go about your day without someone else making you immediately expect harmful or offensive contact. So here's the absolute simplest way to remember the difference. Battery protects the body. It requires actual contact. Assault protects the mind. It just requires your awareness of imminent contact. You can have one without the other, or, of course, you can have both at the same time. Okay, so we've shielded the body with battery, and we've shielded the mind with assault. The next layer of our force field protects our freedom of movement. This is false imprisonment. Now, the definition seems pretty straightforward, right? You intentionally confine someone to a specific area. But what actually counts as confinement? Because I guarantee you it's not always about locked doors and bars on the windows. Confinement is way broader than most people think. It can be physical barriers, sure, like a locked room. It can also be threats of force. But this last one is the most subtle, and maybe the most important, an assertion of legal authority. Think about a security guard who tells you you can't leave this office, and you believe them, and stay put. You have been confined, even if that door was unlocked the entire time. So let's just take a step back and put it all together. When you look at these torts not as separate rules, but as a whole system, you can see that the law has done something pretty remarkable. It's built that personal force field we talked about at the very beginning. Look at it this way. At the very core, at the center, you have battery, shielding your physical body. The next layer out from that is assault, which shields your mind from the threat of a breach. And then the outer layer is false imprisonment, shielding your fundamental liberty and your freedom of movement. Together, they form this incredible, multi-layered legal force field all around you. And this all leaves us with a really big question. In a crowded world full of accidental bumps and careless words, where do we draw the line between just everyday life and an actual intentional tort? The law says the answer is in that one key ingredient, intent. But think about it for a second. How can we ever truly know what's going on in someone else's mind? That's the challenge these cases always present, and it's why that line between an awkward moment and a legal wrong will always be up for debate.